Okay, good morning. We'll start as usual with our Torah and the Parsha, and then continue with the halachic discussions. We have a very interesting point that came up last week in the women's shir. It wasn't what I spoke about last night between Mincha and Marib, totally different topic. Chumrah, not a kula. So, whoever saw the headline of the shir last night was a big kula. It had to do with tearing. I think I spoke about it in this year. Yeah. Anyhow, so first to the Parsha, really something very amazing I heard from Rav Lasri. Happened to hear him on radio in the car on Friday a few moments. And it's not really the Parsha, it's more on the Haftarah, which we read, the first of the three Puranuta, La Aleinu, three of the difficult Haftarahs that we learned during the 3 weeks. And then we go into 7 Nechemta, 7 beautiful Haftarahs from Yeshayahu that speak about the redemption and comforting us. But first we had to go through this. So we read Divrei Yirmiyahu ben Chilkiyahu, Asher min hakohanim asher ba'anatot, that how do we call that? There's a word in English where we appoint someone to be something. We have the tekes, the ceremony, inauguration. Thank you. That was the word. The inauguration of Yirmiyahu, when he was chosen to be a prophet. So as usual, many of the prophets react that way. They say, no, I'm not, I can't, I'm not on the level, I'm not liable to become one. I'm young, Nara Nochi. So Hashem tells him, anyhow, you were chosen, Mibeten Ikdashticha, already from your mother's womb, you were already designated to become a prophet. Of course, he did hard work to reach that level, but he was meant to be from the beginning. And then Hashem sort of tests him by showing him two things, two dreams of objects that he has to identify what he's seeing. So the first was, what do you see here? So Yirmiyahu says, a stick or a branch from the almond tree, Makel Shaked Aniroeh. So Hashem reacts back, Hitavta lirot, you saw it properly, you saw the right thing. Ki shokedani al devari la'asoto, because I'm prepared to act upon my words. So shoked, it's in Hebrew word that I'm ready to. It's going to come speedily. And then he sees the second item, which is Ma'ataro Yirmiyahu. So he says, Sir nafuach ani roeh ufanav pnei tzafona. I see a pot, big, large pot, that its opening is to the north. Head to the north. So Hashem says again, correct? Mitzafon tipatach hara'ah. That the bad circumstances that's going to happen now will come from the north. That we know from the Babylonians in the days of Yirmiyahu. That's when they destroyed the Beis Hamikdash and the city of Jerusalem. It all came from north. So the question is, what's so special about him noticing these or understanding what he's seeing? Makel Shaked and Sir Nafuach. So the very first gut feeling is that he's noticing the details. You could have said, Makel anyway. I see a stick, I see a branch. Who of us would have said the branch of the almond tree? That's already special. And so is the pot. We would say we see a large pot here, but that it's facing north, that's already a detail that most of us wouldn't say. I think that's the pshat of the psukim here, that Hashem is praising him for seeing the details, not only the general outlook of what's going on. And that's how we're supposed to also correct ourselves with every single detail in our lives to make sure we're doing everything correct. But Last week, he spoke about the first one, Makel Shaked Ani Roeh. He said something very, very beautiful. Eitavta lirot doesn't only mean you are correct by noticing every detail, like we said before. Also, the fact that he said Makel Shaked, that means true. It's now a stick. It's now a dry branch, but it's of an almond tree, meaning there is hope. There is hope that that in the future there'll be almonds growing from it. It reminds us also. This I'm adding to what I heard. It reminds us of the stick of the staff of Aaron, right? When he placed all their staffs in Oel Moed, and it came out in the morning, all flourishing, blooming with flowers. Vayetzu prachim, vayatz tzitz, vayigmol shkedim. Shkedim, again, it's the almond. I guess that's the quickest of all fruit that comes out. We know it's the earliest in the season. The Tu B'Shvat already, it starts flourishing and sprouting with its fruits and flowers. So that's what Yirmiyahu is seeing. Yirmiyahu is seeing the stick. Yes, we're going to be hit by Hashem now. It's time to get hit by the stick, by the branch. But it's shaked, makel shaked. It's only in part of the process to get to the point where we flourish, where we grow, where the fruits come out of it. It's part of the process. We had to go through the stick as well. But that stick in the end will lead to flourishing. I think it's a beautiful point there.
Correct. I think almonds are very, very bitter in the beginning. They taste nice.
Sweet. That's very nice.
I'm almost positive.
That's a beautiful addition. Sounds familiar?
Yeah, I learned that all the
so you can't take the meiser from a unripe because it's not a fruit yet. That's very nice. Very nice. That adds perfect, fits perfectly with what he said. And also, of course, connects us, as Rav Lassi himself pointed out to Rabbi Akiva, where they're all crying there. His friends who are all sages, Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Gamliel, they're all big sages. They're crying over Beis Hamikdash being destroyed. They see Shualim il Chubo. They see the wolves walking around in Har Bayit. What's that? Foxes. Sorry. Yeah, right. Foxes, right. So while they're walking around there, it's not so much different today. Nowadays, just on two legs. Yeah. So it's very painful to see, and they're all crying. And Rabbi Akiva is laughing. So they ask him, "What are you laughing about? What's so funny? What are you happy about?" So he says that I see what's happening now, but if this prophecy of Uriah came true, Tzion Tzadeh Techaresh, that Zion will be destroyed totally, and run over. So I know also that the Nevuah of Zechariah will also come true, which is Od Yeshvu Zkenim Uzkenot B'Yerushalayim Minadot Misachkim Bechovoteah. We'll have elderly men and women walking around, sitting on the bench, talking to each other nicely in Yerushalayim, and the kids playing in the streets, on the sidewalks, not in the streets. Yeah, right. I guess in those days, Chavot, they didn't have a sidewalk plus a driving. Yeah, it was all one. Anyhow, so it's a beautiful idea of Makel Shaked Ani Roeh. And then adding to this beautiful idea is the fact that Hitavta lirot. Hashem says to Yirmiyahu, not only did you see clearly and you saw the details, but also Hitavta lirot. You see the good that comes out. Something a little bit on a different note of the words Hitavta lirot. Always try to find the good that comes out of something. Don't look at the current situation necessarily when it's bad, when it's challenging, but realize that it comes to bring the good out of it. The good comes out of it in the end. That's also a different idea of explaining Hitavta lirot. Okay, so we hope we'll live up to this idea, whether it's the details that are Hitavta lirot, or whether it's the good that comes out of everything that means Hitavta lirot, both ways. If we live such a life, and we're sure to live a happy life, a life of laughter like Rabbi Akiva, and not of crying like the rest of the sages then, which again, we can't blame them for feeling so, but it's a little bit of a step higher over Mekiva to teach us to look beyond the situation, what it develops into. Okay, so that's the Torah. Now, halacha that came out from last week's women's shir in the Shivte group we have Wednesday evening. We're discussing Borer on Shabbat, and it came up this question, this situation, and don't have a very good answer. But I know that it's something that many people unfortunately stumble over, and by Borer specifically, it's a malacha that is quite frequently transgressed, unfortunately, on Shabbat. So therefore, we have to be sure we're doing the right thing. The situation is, many times it happens that people are invited to someone or invite over people, family to their home. By you people, it's mainly grandchildren already. But when children play,
It's a huge sport.
Mizat Hashem, right. Mizat Hashem, on the way. Yeah. Hope to be welcome to the club soon, Mizat Hashem. Yeah. I don't know of anything specific, but yeah, whenever, yeah. Hey, Tav Talirot. We see the good, yeah, eventually. Anyhow, so it so happens that kids play with toys and games as they sit down for 3 minutes at the table and then they disappear for the rest of the meal. They're playing with all kinds of toys and games. And at the very end, when you're about to leave, then as good parents and parents who try to educate their children, so they say, why don't you tidy up the mess you've made at your host home, or if it's people that are invited to you, so those parents say to their kids, let's tidy up what happened, the mess here. By doing so, it could be that the parents are asking their child to do an Issa D'Oraita. How is that? Yeah, sounds crazy and outlandish, but yes, because the moment the toys and games are all in a pile, all mixed together. A mixture is where we speak about borer. Borer means to sort things out or to separate one from another. Now, it doesn't have to be food necessarily. It can also be toys and cutlery and books, anything that's a mixture. And now we're sorting it in place, separating. Now, it doesn't have to be good from bad necessarily or bad from good. It can also be good from good, because the fact that you don't want all the games, all the toys in one mixture. You want them all separated into their own boxes and place in the closet. That's boring. Although there's a Pri Megadim that says that if it's good from good and you don't mean to use either or, it's just to put in place, then it's really not boring. There's a Pri Megadim that says this case would be okay. But the Biro Halacha in Shin Yutet Siv Gimel, this doesn't accept the Pri Megadim. He proves against him, and he says no, it's true. It's still boring. The fact that true, they're both going to be in the closet now. You're not going to use any of them right now, but the sorting of them, putting them in place, separating game from game, toy from toy, that's itself boring. On the other hand, if you do bad from bad, that's okay. Speak about psolet, that they're both going into the garbage. Just you want to separate the garbage. One is liquid, one is solid. Like we throw things into the sink. We're also separating because the liquid goes down the drain and the solid remains in the sink. That's separating with a kli, with a utensil, because we have the net on the bottom of the sink, not to allow the solids to fall in. But that's okay. From psolet, you're allowed to separate. We're going to have that a lot soon for the Shemitah year. Those who buy from Otzar Haaretz, who have the Kedusha Shvis in the produce of the fruits and vegetables. So if you want to throw away leftovers of holy Kedusha Haaretz, holy fruits and vegetables, we mustn't throw them in a regular garbage pail. We need to have a separate Kedusha Shvis garbage. But that we'd be allowed to on Shabbat to throw away separately the Kedusha Shvis into its garbage and the rest into the normal garbage. So that you're allowed to separate bad from bad, but good from good, even if you're not meaning to use now any of them, it's still not allowed according to Rabbi Olacha, which is the Mishnah Berurah, which is who we follow. So, seemingly, how can parents ask their children to tidy up the mess and separate the toys? If they're anyhow separate in different parts of the room, then it's okay. But if it's all one pile of Lego and Kapla and Playmobil, all that, so it's all mixed together.
When in Shabbat, that this mess in the room is taken away from the enjoyment of Shabbat.
That's true. What's that?
What if it's a decade?
Yeah, right. He spoke about why he's being always correct. Yeah, the parents will be happy. Off the floor and just put it all in one place. Exactly. You can just take the whole pile and put it all, dump it into one place or one corner of the room or into a box or whatever. And Motzei Shabbat, they'll have to sort out the things. Now you can offer very nicely to come back to return Motzei Shabbat to help them tidy up and clean up the mess. But even if there wasn't anywhere to put it, to place it, it would stay in the middle of the room as a mess. There wouldn't be any place to put it as a pile. That's still not enough of a reason, good enough reason, the Oneg Shabbos, to allow an Issa D'Oraita. That, when you come to Hachana, which is a rabbinic Issa, not to prepare for a weekday, so we say if it's now important to you that the room looks nice because it's Shabbos, then it's no longer Hachana. That's when we can use that point to allow us to do things. But for Borer, it's not enough that it's unpleasant to be in a room that has a mess like that in it. And especially, how I just said, that you can push it aside and shove it into some closet as a mess, as a pile, and Motzei Shabbat separate one from another. So the only solution I came up with in the meantime, unless we find something else, but I couldn't think of anything besides this. The only solution would be to actually ask the kids to create even a greater mess in the room. What does that mean? Just separate everything, like throw everything to all sides of the room, and then to undo a mess is okay, meaning to separate something just to cause the pile to be separate from one another, but not in order yet. Still a mess, but not close to one another, not in mixture. Totally separate in different sides of the different areas in the room. Then on one hand, it's no longer a pile, it's no longer a mixture. And therefore, you can now take any piece that you'd like and put it in place.
You're saying take all the kapla and push it to that corner. Take all the
No. That's separating.
Instead of a pile that's
Pile together,
spread out the whole pile.
Spread out the pile. Has that helped? Oh, then it's not a mixture. The moment you have, let's say,
we talked about this. Okay.
right, if I have two books like this, one far from the other, that's not a mixture. I can put this in place, and it's not considered that I'm boring, that I'm sorting the pile because it's not a pile. Whereas here, you have three books, one on top of the other piled up, that I can't put in place as if I pick and choose which book I would like to put in place. That's sorting. When it's not in a pile, it's not in a mixture at all, so there's no problem boring. So if I take deliberately all the kapla out of the mess, then it's not good. Then I'm sorting. Right. But if I just separate everything, spread it out totally without seeing what I'm doing, just kick it to all sides of the room, the kids would love doing that. Yeah. Say, go ahead, pick everything aside to all sides, and then start picking up any piece you'd like. All the kaplot you pick up. You can then even pick up the pieces in order, meaning you pick and choose. Let's now find all the kaplot in the room and pick them all up and put them in their box. Let's find all the Lego pieces, pick them up and put them in their box. Then we can even sort because it's not a mixture.
It's like when we talked about an apple and a ball of orange, spill it all out.
Exactly. That's always a good solution. That always works. That's not.
If you wanted to put them away and you didn't want to spread them out, you just take the top one, put it away. It's not like you're trying to sort, then take the next one, put it away, take the next one.
Right.
Without any forethought as to that
as to what are you doing? Are you putting it right? So, yeah, just to repeat the question here. I don't know if people heard on Zoom. Alan was asking, can you, in the books of a pile of books, Can you just pick up the top one, put it away? The next one, put it away, without thinking what type you want to take now specifically. Whatever comes to hand, that's what you put away. The Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa in this case differentiates between different cases. We said by cutlery, we can't do that. If we have a whole pile of cutlery all together, of silverware all together, we can't just close our eyes, take out one piece, see, it's a fork, I'll put it back in place. Then I pick up another piece, knife, I'll back in place. You can't do that with cutlery, but you can do that with books. So Alan's solution was correct for books, but it's not always true. You can't do that with toys neither. I don't know exactly, once Phil Malka tried to explain the difference. I don't know exactly what the difference is, why he allowed by books, but he didn't allow by toys, and he didn't allow by cutlery, by silverware. All in a, I wouldn't think that's enough of a reason. It's something like that even the place in the bookshelves, you can't just stick it anywhere. It has its exact slot in the bookshelf, so it's not considered sorting. I don't know exactly. There was some reason there that he gave. I'm not exactly, I don't understand this exactly. So I would refrain from doing so for almost anything besides books, because all the other things, we're not sure if they're like books or like cutlery, silverware. Another solution would be, but by toys, it's quite cumbersome and takes time and wouldn't be a practical solution. If, let's say, we have a whole pile of things, we take out one thing without picking and choosing what's coming out, whatever comes to our hand, and we use it before we put it in place. Now that we use it, then we're not taking out of the pile in order to put it away. We're taking out in order to use. That's allowed. We can take good from bad for immediate use. That's not borer. So if you take up, let's say if it wasn't true that you could put books back into the shelf, if you take the top and then the bottom and then the underneath one. So we take a book, open it up, read a line, and then put it back in place. That's how you do for each book. Read a line. You gain a little bit more Torah if it's Limudei Kodesh books, if it's holy books. Then you gain another line of Torah before you put it away. Same for silverware. We said we can dry a piece of silverware that's wet, dry it first, and the moment it's in your hand for drying purposes, which is not sorting yet, so you took one piece, dried it, and now it's in your hand, so you can put it in place.
You had 8 guests over for Friday night, and in our Shabbos lunch, just you and your wife. Why is that hachana?
You mean to wash your dishes before drying them? Washing your dishes is a chana. The whole wash, dry, put away. It is, but in 2 circumstances we would allow it anyhow. One is usually by women who are very pedantic. What's that? Some sound here. Very, very pedantic women who just can't stand a mess in their sink. So then it's not a chana for a weekday, it's for Shabbos to be a normal Shabbos. Now the test for such women, or men sometimes, if it's true by men too, the test is during the week, not on Shabbat. That's not the test. If during the week you are unable to see any dirty dishes in the sink, I mean, you're always cleaning your dishes immediately, washing your dishes immediately after use, and not allowing anything to rest in the sink, at least overnight. If you're that type of person that's not willing to stand any dirty dishes overnight, then you can wash your dishes on Shabbat. Friday night, even if you don't need them at all, let's say you're invited somewhere, Shabbat day, not even you and your wife, you're invited somewhere, you can still wash your dishes totally, your whole sink, and you had gas and everything, you can wash the whole sink because you're such a person that bothers you, so it's owning Shabbos. That's who use owning Shabbos that you mentioned before. Okay, now the second situation where we may allow washing dishes even though you're not going to use them Shabbat day. If, let's say, you've used up all your forks for Friday night, okay? Now, for Shabbat day, even if it's just you and your wife, this doesn't work if you're hosted, because then you don't need any fork. But if you're at home, just you and your wife at home, and you need only 2 forks, halacha allows you to wash all the forks in the sink in order to be able to choose 2 forks from those you've washed. Same idea, as long as you need one of them, even one the next day, and you don't have any clean ones in the drawer. The moment you need one piece of each type, not of, let's say if you need a fork and a knife, but you don't need the spoons Shabbos day, you cannot wash any spoon. You can only wash all the ones of the same type that you need to use the next day, the following morning, as long as you don't have any of them clean in the drawer. So if you need one plate, you can wash all the plates because halacha allows you to wash all the same type in order to choose which one you'd like. Even though nowadays they're all the same set. So what does it mean to choose a fork? They're all the same. But even so, let's take this leniency and not argue that it's okay. So if you need one of each type, you wash the whole sink just for that reason.
Can I ask, if you say no other forks in the drawer, does it have to be for the same set? What if I got a fancy Shabbat set and I've got a weekday set, or two fancy Shabbat sets and I've got one and I want to always use that one I like to use, not the other one? I have a fork, I just don't have one of those forks.
Right. So very good question. I don't know if you've heard the question. Okay. So the answer is that you don't need to open a new set, which you prefer not using just because you don't have from the normal set you normally use, and it's all in the sink dirty. It's as if you don't have any forks in that case.
Okay.
Whole other set, fancier, or for whatever reason you don't want to use that one normally on a normal Shabbat, it's as if you have no forks left, and you can wash the sink with its forks because you don't have that set that you don't want to use. Yes, David.
Rav Steinberg, thank you. So the tzaddikim, I just want to be clear because I heard there's solutions not to do this. But if you're going to clean up the shul sidurim and chumashim after davening, you shouldn't go around and put a rinat and a koran and a chumash under your arm and then put them in the shelf.
Correct.
But you can take the rinats or can take the koran.
Exactly. Exactly. First, collect all the rinat from all the standards of people who leave them before leaving shul. After going out, you leave them there. So you can pick out first all the rinat, pile them up, bring them to the shelf, put them in the right place. Then pick up all the koran, put in place. Pick up all the chumash, put them in place. If you pick them all up in one pile, then you're stuck with the situation. Then, as we said, by books, you can return them back in place as long as you're just taking the top one each time and putting it in place, not from the pile picking out all the rinats first and all the koran second.
The problem was all the tefillah because they were spread out.
Exactly.
So why make it complicated?
Exactly. So that's why David was saying, since it's spread out, don't make a pile, right?
Don't make the pile.
Exactly. Just pick up all the rinats first, and then you have a pile of rinats and you put them in their shelf and so on and so forth. Exactly. Sometimes they're already in the shelves, but all mixed up because people put them back not in place. They don't realize that it should be all koran in one shelf and rinat in another shelf. Sometimes in the shelf itself, it's already mixed together. That you should not sort on Shabbat. That only Motzei Shabbat, someone should come in and put and sort them out in place, because that's already a whole mixture on the shelf. Some posts can say that it's not considered a mixture because Rav Yosef altogether is lenient about all these cases, the cutlery, the sidurim, chumashim. He says if it's very obvious when you look at it, you immediately see a difference between the rinat and the koran. Carefully search for something because it's hard to tell a difference. Immediately it pops up to your eye, then it's not considered a mixture even though they are together. Maybe by toys you would also allow putting them back in place just because toys are very obvious, very different from one another. Easy to
a piece of Lego and a Monopoly card don't exactly look exactly the same thing.
Correct.
It's totally separate.
Correct. But first of all,
they're both toys. What I'm saying, it's like,
yeah. But first of all, even with seeing distinctly the difference, Ashkenazic poskim did not allow sorting the pile. For example, forks, knives, spoons, tablespoons, those are all very distinctly different one from another. And yet, the Shmir Shabbos Kilchasa definitely does not allow sorting them in place after they've dried up altogether. So,
Rabbi, what if when you're putting things in the dishwasher, it's a Friday night, you're not going to use those dishes until after,
right.
Loading the dishwasher.
Yeah.
Somebody puts it in, there's a good way to load the dishwasher, and then
there's a bad way.
Are you allowed to rearrange?
Depends how it's arranged. It depends how they're arranged. If there's space between each plate, then you could say that it's not a mixture. Again, it's the idea of that separate, the separate one from another. If they're very close to one another, then you cannot rearrange it. That's the whole difference. A mixture or not. The cutlery, you have to just dump it in as is, everything together, right? That's anyway what people do. Unless they're different compartments. I don't know. We don't have a dishwasher, so not aware. Little tray, put like knives separate, forks separate. So that you can't do. They're all together. You have to bunch them out. As a bunch, put them in. Okay, so yeah, so Rav Yosef may have allowed, I don't know if he spoke about the specific case of all the toys and games all bunched up together. He may have allowed to put them back like he allowed cutlery. But the Ashkenazic poskim did not. So for them, we need this solution of separating the pile firstly, like spreading it out totally, and then start putting things in place. Unless you want to use the solution of taking each toy from the mess and have your child play with it for a second. Each one, take this here, play with this. Okay, now take it from you, put it in place. That's why I said it's not practical. It's practical by books to just read a line and then put it back. But that's not practical. When you're about to leave, you're going to tell the kid now play again with every single piece. It's much more practical to spread it all out, and then do the separating.
Abyssal tangent.
Yeah.
Why is it Mekubal that Am Yisrael is able to carry back the talis after davening on Shabbos? Why isn't that Hachana?
Okay, that's a good, excellent question.
Let's not even mention folding. That's another sphere.
Right.
Just purely carrying it back.
Carrying it back. Okay, so Shlomo Zalman on that, it's in the Shmir Shabbos. I don't have it here.
Am Yisrael does that for a fact, and everyone does that.
Correct. Same as, unfortunately, I couldn't find a better solution we just spoke about now, but Am Yisrael also put back their toys when it's a mess. They always ask their children, let's tidy up the mess and put it back in place, which is, in my eyes right now, if I don't find any other solution except for Rav Yosef, could be an issue to right. It's very scary. So not always what Am Yisrael does is always correct. But in this case, Shlomo Zalman does explain how can one carry back their talis home after shul on Shabbos. They're hachana, they're preparing for either next Shabbat or for a weekday. If a person doesn't have a separate talis for Shabbos and a weekday, they're preparing for Sunday. If they do, you're not allowed to prepare from Shabbos to Shabbos either. That's a Meforish Shara Tziyun, the Shara Tziyun, which is the footnotes of the Mishnah Berurah, written by him himself. He has a Shara Tziyun note that even if you're preparing from Shabbat to Shabbat is not allowed. So how can you take back your... So Shlomo Zalman comes up with this idea. Again, it's very, very fitting, his way of thinking, to explain how come that's allowed. And he brings a few examples like that. Some of them are very surprising. It's a whole list of examples in the Shmir Shabbos Chasa in the name of Shlomo Zalman. He says, Hachana is almost like Kavana le'achana. You need Kavana le'achana, meaning Hachana is when you're doing something that you're thinking that in your thoughts now, your head is now lishma, sort of, right? Meaning you're intending on preparing. Exactly. That's exactly the right word. Anything that you do automatically, as a matter of fact, you're not thinking at all. Who's thinking in their head now, I will now fold up my talis, again, in a way that you're allowed to, take it home in order to prepare for Sunday to have my talis there. You're not thinking, it's automatic. So anything you do automatically is not a chana, even though it really is. That's his answer. And due to that, he allows all kinds of things that we would never allow. We wouldn't have thought that this should be allowed. It's his chiddush. That's not a chana. Another example is, let's say the children are going out afternoon. In Ranana, it wouldn't be so necessary usually. But in Yerushalayim, this could be a good example. They're going out in Shabbat afternoon to their youth groups, let's say. Akiva, Ezra, Ariel, whatever they are. Oh, now in the evening, late evening, it becomes cool. Not here in Ranana. In Yerushalayim, you can come at 5 in the afternoon, it's quite warm. But if you're out till 8, 9 in the evening, coming back, it's going to be already cool. So Zalman allows taking a sweater or a jacket even though right now you don't need it at all. That's pure hachana. You're preparing for 8, 9 in the evening to come back warm in cool weather. But he says again, that's something automatic. You go out, you take a sweater with you. You don't stop and think, let's think, how can I do this in order to prepare? Washing your dishes is preparing. Washing your dishes, you're really seriously involved in something that's not as a matter of fact thing. It's not automatic. You stand there by the sink and wash dish after dish after dish. That's hachana. But if you just grab the sweater and go, you're not thinking even. That's something you do automatically. That's hachana. It's very interesting. Yeah.
You're learning on Shabbos afternoon, or you're learning Friday night. You have 3 or 4 svarim there. You're not going to use them until who knows when. Of course, you got to put it back in your library.
Also true. That's quite automatic, right? Even if you don't need that space, if you need the space, so it's for Shabbat. Right. But you don't need the space anymore, and it's not even bothersome to you as a right, as a mess. But even that, not it's automatically you put it back in place, right? On the other hand, Sudah Shlishit, that you finished eating Sudah Shlishit, you should not clear away everything from the table, because then it has to do it also with it to be normal. And the fact that it's bothersome to you, that's true now, the whole mess, but it's another 5-10 minutes till Shabbat anyway exterminates. Correct. Because anything that can spoil, you're allowed to put back in place. Right. But the dishes and whatever doesn't get spoiled when it's out, you can't clear the table. Because you have to use your head a little. Even if it's still bothersome to you, but Shabbat is almost ending. So why do something that's not necessary in order that does prepare? That isn't automatic, because you're putting back a lot of dishes away into the sink and a lot of silverware and the cups and the bottles and all that. That's work. So do all that in 10 minutes, 15 minutes from now. It's very. It doesn't take. It won't kill you if you wait a few more minutes. So we always have to use our head when it's considered a chana, when it isn't. That's what. And after all, don't forget that a chana in general is only rabbinically forbidden, not d'oraita. So if it's rabbinically forbidden, we can find all these loopholes that allow us to do such things.
I have a couple of friends who just roll it up and stuff. I can leave it in their stand.
I would say that's the worst solution. Don't learn from them. Don't learn from them. Not for Shabbos reasons, but because it desecrates the holiness of it. Imagine if you had something very, very precious to you, and you jumble it like a ball. That's not nice. It's not mechubad, not respectful to the talis. That's a point that it doesn't appear in halacha so straightforward for that, but it's definitely something that makes common sense to us not to do such a thing. It does appear regarding the order of things when they built a mishkan. So every not beam, the walls of the mishkan, they had the krashim. Planks? Okay, planks, beams, okay. I thought beams are dafka on the ceiling. Amudim, right.
Amudim, pillars. Yeah.
Like pillars, but they're not pillars really, because they're wooden planks. Okay, wooden planks that made up the walls of the Mishkan. They had them in exact order each time they put up the Mishkan. They knew exactly which one. There were 30 on each side and 10 on the 30 in the length and 10 in the width. Each and every one was set exactly in its place as they built the Mishkan the next time.
Letters and numbers.
Correct, letters and numbers, exactly. Oh yeah, also the sukkah also is the same place, right? When you build a sukkah, you build it the same way. So for here we learn that order is part of holiness, to make it put it in order, put it nicely. So therefore, also by the talis, we're supposed to fold it and not jumble it as a ball. But how do we fold it? So the truth of the matter is, it's probably okay to fold normally, because the reason why halachically in halacha it says not to fold normally is because you're creating the creases as you fold. You make those lines as you fold, and that's like yehutz. That's like ironing it, because the rest will flatten out, and the creases will be the place where it's folded neatly, and that's like ironing. That's what it says. Kim megahetz, if you're ironing on Shabbat, which is a Toladav kibus, of laundry. Actually, that's our chapter right now. So we'll go back into our chapter through this question. But firstly, Shlomo Zalman said, when you anyway have the creases in your talis that are very firm and steady and routine in your talis every single day, that's where you fold. So you're not creating the creases, they're there anyhow. Like pants, when men's pants, you fold them on the crease, you're not creating it, it's there. It's where you're folding it. So you're allowed doing that pants and talis. But for those who are stringent still and say, no, that's still you're straightening the rest of the talis, whatever, or doing it on the crease is strengthening that location to be straight and good. So the solution that fits according to all poskim, if you don't want to follow this one, this leniency, is to do it the opposite side, to fold it in the opposite side of the crease. Right, which doesn't, you're not ironing the opposite. You're making the opposite, you're sort of ruining the crease because you're doing it the other way around. So fold it the whole way opposite of you would do, as if you would do on a weekday. Then you're not ironing and you're not jumbling it as ball and it still looks nice and neat. After Shabbat, immediately after Havdalah, then you undo it and fold it properly. That's what we're doing.
Is there any nafkamina between a Shabbos talis and a full talis that you're wearing on Shabbos?
It's just the difference that you're not wearing a weekday one. That doesn't it doesn't necessarily be a nicer one, better looking, but it's the one that you don't use during the week.
The way you fold it, you do it differently if you only wear it on Shabbos or if you fold one that you're wearing on Shabbos. That's my question. Oh, that's your question. All right, I thought you meant if to have what type of talis to have. No. You're asking about the folding of it. I was once told that years ago. I'm not sure. I didn't ask you.
I can't think of a difference. I don't see enough kamina now. Okay. From the point of view of gihutz, of ironing, for sure not. The point of view of a chana may be that if you're using the same one for a weekday, then you shouldn't, I guess. It's even worse if you fold it normally because then you're preparing for a weekday. Whereas if you're using one only for Shabbatot, but again, we said that you're not allowed to prepare from Shabbat to Shabbat. So I don't see a difference. No, I don't see a difference. In both ways, I would do it opposite of the normal, and Motzei Shabbat after Havdalah, redo it properly, and that's how it says that we should fold our talisim better if we fold talisim after Havdalah, and it says do it quite immediately after because shlom bayit issues have to do with that. If you fold it immediately, then you have a good shlom bayit in your house. If not, you have problems. I think the simple reason is because your wife gets mad at you if she sees you haven't folded it properly, so she gets angry, and then the whole balagan. This way, you show her that you're neat and tidy, and she's happy, she's pleased. Okay, so that's it for introduction. Now we'll continue our. Is there a question here, David Weinstein? No. Okay. Oh, you're raising your hand. Okay.
I'm up in the Golan, so I'm sorry I'm a little late.
Oh, wow. Enjoy. Beautiful. Wow, very nice.
Yeah.
You wait for a short vacation?
Yeah, just for the weekend. To spend Shabbat with friends from the States who came to visit their children.
Ah, nice. Which yeshuv in the Golan?
No.
No. Ah, very nice. Very nice. Yeah. I used to be all settled by Kohanim. Today, not necessarily.
Until they were all murdered.
Yeah. It wasn't a good end. It wasn't a good ending then.
Yeah. I'll have to ask about that story.
Yeah. We'll go into it now, but it has to do with Lashon Hara also. Lashon Hara of Doeg killed the whole city of Nob. Shaul running after David. Oh, actually, David HaMelech. You see, he came to Nob. David Weinstein came to Nob. Very nice. Enjoy. Yeah, it's a very nice place.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we were at this we've done. This also. Okay. I think we've done in general most of the situations because we gave the guidelines for laundering, but a few more specific examples as we have in this chapter. Havrashat migbarat me'avak. This may happen very, it seems to us very mundane, very non-problematic to do on Shabbat, yet it's a big problem. Sometimes we have some dust on our clothes, or here he's talking about specifically a hat, mikbat, the type the Haredim wear, a black hat. So sometimes you get some dust on it, or you brush yourself against the wall, your shirt or jacket gets a little dirty against the wall. So it's very simple just to do like this, or get it off, and that's it. But as we've studied, and I think we said this already, that according to Rashi, in Shabbos Mem Zayin, this is a doraita. It's a doraita. It's laundering doraita level. He says chayav chatas, meaning if it was done unintentionally, and if it's done intentionally, you don't want to know.
If there's two witnesses and a warning.
Two witnesses and warning, right. Even if not, karet is bad enough. That's only for skila, to be stoned, but karet is also very unpleasant. That's why people celebrate their 60th year, because they came out of karet. That's the sign that they didn't do anything terribly wrong in their life till then.
And Mita B'Dei is 50 and Kars is 60?
Correct. Mita B'Dei is 50 and Kares is 60. And Lo Aleinu, there's Kares Ariri, which is terrible.
Actually, you know that way before.
Those children, person's children die. Terrible. It reminds me of something that it's still in my mind ever since I heard this years and years ago. It's something that I can't imagine a person doing such a thing, but he did it. I was there present. I don't know if you remember, there was a soldier called Nachshon Wachsman. He was kidnapped by terrorists, and Seret Matkal tried to get him out. It was on Shabbat that they tried to get him out, and they did not succeed. He was killed on the spot, and also the commander of that group of soldiers was also killed in the process. Anyhow, there was days of anticipation towards, and then there were days after. So during the days after, they were sitting Shiva, the family, and I was studying with his brother, Chaim Wachsman. His brother was in my class in Chorin.
Harnov, right?
No, Ramot. In Ramot. Anyway, the family was very special then. The days before the actual attempt to get him out, they got everyone very spiritually uplifted. All over the world. The wife, the mother, asked for every woman to light Shabbos candles all over the world, all Jewish women. It was unbelievable what they did there. Unfortunately, didn't help specifically for Nachshon, but it definitely helped the elevation of the Jewish people in general. Rav Elon was the one who did the hesped when at the burial, because he was from Chorev, the boy, and Rav Elon was our headmaster, the Rosh Hashiva. So when he gave the hesped, he said, it was a very famous line. I don't remember if he said it himself or in the name of Nachshon's father. It would have been in the name of Nachshon's father, but whatever, if it was himself who thought of it, he said, we pray to our Father, to Hashem, as we ask sometimes for things from our parents. And sometimes they say no. They can also say no. That was a very powerful line, just those few words, because everyone felt so sunken after so many prayers and so many attempts to grow together spiritually and to do the best we can for Hashem to have mercy over him. In the end, it sort of didn't work. It seemed to us it didn't work. So what happened with our prayers? So he had to say that line. He gave that very beautiful line. Sometimes our Father can say no. Anyhow, so I went to visit the Shiva home there, not only because I was friendly with his brother, but also because it was very touching to see what this family did to the entire Misra. So I felt there's a lot to gain from them, even at their Shiva home. And I was right. I sat there for hours and hours just to listen to the father and to how he encouraged everyone. He was so uplifting. It was unbelievable. So inspiring just to be there, just to hear him. Anyway, in comes the person from Ramot, his neighbor. In comes the neighbor. And after he sits there for a while and listens and all that, so he opens his mouth and he says to the father, to the parents there, I just can't believe this person is able to say that. He says, there's a Gemara and so, in some place in the Gemara in Shas, where it says, Ba'avon nedarim banav shel adam metim.
Very classy individual.
What's that?
Very classy individual.
Yeah. Yeah, it's terrible. So he's telling him that because of not following your promises, your children die. That's like I mentioned before, karet ariri. That's the worst type of karet. So here the Gemara tells you for what reason. So the father, really, he was such a special man. Some would just ignore or like change topics. The father just said in front of his, straightforward in front of him, to him directly. He says, "You came here to tell me this." What a chutzpah! Like he said something very, very strong and he said, I don't remember what happened. That he probably changed colors before he left, but he gave it to him. He really gave it to him. It's not how you speak. You can comfort someone and you explain to him why this happened. He tried to sort of tell him, we don't have to do tshuva and cheshbon nefesh, but that's not what you say at that moment when you're so anguished and sad about what happened. Anyway, this reminded me of karet hariri. Yeah, these are tendons. Yeah.
Rav Lichtenstein was being Menachem Avo. He learned by Rav Hutner.
Oh, he did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he learned by Rav Hutner.
Rav Itzhak Hutner, the Rav Itzhak?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And there was one-on-one. He was sitting shiva for his wife.
Uh-huh.
And he was sitting shiva for his wife, and someone came in and did the same thing. He was so emotional with his wife, saying she's in a better place now, and it's better this way, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And he left. Rav Hutner turned to Rav Lichtenstein and said, "The Gemara says that what does the Gemara say? An avela is worth an ass of an avela is worth more than more than somebody with no das."
Yeah.
That, huh?
Yes.
That's what he said. Oh, sorry. This was Rosh Hashiva.
Yeah, Tamid Chacham shein bo dat nevela tova imeno. That's the saying.
So that's the saying. And the person that was Avo was Rosh Hashiva.
Rosh Hashiva.
Another Rosh Hashiva.
It says nevela tova imeno. And nevela is better than that.
Yeah, who said that your wife's in a better place. And
yeah.
And it was just him and Rav Lichtenstein, and he quoted that pasuk about this Rosh Hashiva.
The phrase.
About this
The phrase means that a Talmid Chacham doesn't have seichel. He doesn't have das. He speaks stupidly, and Nevela is better than him. Nevela is like a dead corpse.
This is in Rav Ronen's book. He brings it down.
He brings this.
Talking about Das Torah and and all this other stuff.
Right.
So the story that Rav Lichtenstein.
Sometimes Talmid Chacham ain't bodat. Right. Wow.
That was a great story.
Yeah. Very
great story. Very similar to this, but this is Rav Hutner saying it. This is not. This is
yeah.
We're not talking about someone that was offended.
Right.
There was another Rosh Hashiva, which obviously he would have named.
Yeah, of course.
I would pay money for that.
No, we don't need to know. It's really just for the curiosity, which is Lashon Hara. But so just to end off this tangent on a good note, it reminded me of a story that's beautiful story about Rav Chaim Ozer Grudzinski. He was the greatest rabbi before the Holocaust. Right before the Holocaust, he was the top post Gadol Hador before the Holocaust. So Chaim Ozer was at a certain Kiddush on Shabbos, where the Baron Rothschild was there also. Rothschild, the famous wealthy Rothschild was there also. And of course, he gave the cover to Chaim Ozer Grudzinski to make Kiddush for everyone present at the Kiddush. So right before he started, he filled up the gavia with wine. He tells him, Chaim Ozer Grudzinski, this Rothschild, he tells him, when you finish drinking the wine from the cup, you can eat the cup. The cup is made of mizonos. It's edible. And it's surrounded by a silver coating, which is food coloring, of course. Food coloring, which makes it look like a silver becher, but it's really made out of mizonos. So that can be your kiddush from Suda to eat the cup. So only Rothschild could have done that in those days. I said this story to my kids. I saw it written down in one of these leaflets of Shabbat. So I said this at a Shabbos table. So the kid said, even back then there was such a thing. Like even today, it's something quite rare and unique. So back then, I said, by Rothschild, everything could have been. He could have had a plane of his own, maybe. I'm joking. Anyway, so he thinks for a moment. Rav Chaim Oizer thinks for a moment, and then starts Kiddush. So his students, after they finished the Kiddush and went away, they asked, "What are you thinking about?" After he told you that, and you hesitated to make Kiddush or not. So he says, "I thought the following. It says in Halacha that if you're making Kiddush over wine, you're supposed to cover the challah or any mezonos on the table while you're making Kiddush, because it's embarrassing to the challah and to the mezonos that you're saying Borei Pri Hagafen before mezonos or amotzi. The sequence should be hamaga ish, amotzi, mezonos, gefen, etz, adama, shehakol. Hamaga ish. And here we say Borei Pri Hagafen before we say mezonos or amotzi. We have to cover it not to embarrass the higher ranked foods as we're saying Kiddush. So this is, in this case, I couldn't cover the mezonos because it's the cup itself. So I was hesitating, can I make Kiddush over such a thing? Because I'm not following halacha, not covering the cup. So they asked him, so why did you do Kiddush anyhow? You should have said, let me have a regular cup and cover this one, put this on the side. So he says, because I thought to myself, this whole halacha is meant not to embarrass bread or cake. Those don't feel anything. To embarrass a human being? He gave me the cup to use. So what's worse, to embarrass the mezonos or embarrass the human beings? So I said I can make Kiddush, not to embarrass the human beings. That's beautiful. Very nice. So that's finishing on a happier note than those type of rude people. Okay. So back to our hat with the dust. So we said that Rashi's opinion is that it's chayiv chatas. It's d'oraita iser to brush away just dust from our clothes, because dust is not something that's external. It's considered that it's a little bit rubbed in because it sticks into the fat. It goes sort of absorbs into the fabric. It's not just on top. If it's just on top of the surface, then it's okay. You can brush away a feather. You have a feather that fell on your clothes or pants, you can brush it away. That's not a problem because it doesn't get absorbed into the garment, into the fabric. Here it gets absorbed as dust. It gets absorbed, some of it at least. Some of it is on surface, mamash, on very, very tip of the top of it. So that's okay, but we never can tell which got absorbed and which didn't. So we cannot brush away any dust. But the one who quotes this is the Ramak. The Ramak quotes Rashi in the Shulchan Aruch of Shin Bet Seif Aleph. The Shulchan Aruch does not quote Rashi there as halacha. So for Sephardim, it would be easier more lenient to brush away dust. Ashkenazim, not recommended. And even Sephardim, some poskim were machmir ben Ishchai. Ben Ishchai normally, or not normally, many times follows Dafka Ashkenazic psak. The Ben Ishchai. That's why for Mordechai Eliyahu, who followed the Ben Ishchai as his main posting, many times he was more stringent than other Sephardic posting, because Rav Yosef preferred following strict Shulchan Aruch, Maran. He used to say Maran. Shulchan Aruch is my rabbi, and the Kaf HaChaim, which is of Chaim Sofer, which was also more lenient Shulchan Aruch, original Shulchan Aruch, and not like the Ramah, which was taken more by the Ben Ishchai and used by Mordechai Eliyahu as Psak. That's why a lot of difference between Mordechai Eliyahu and Rabbi Yossi. Of course, you can imagine that Rabbi Yossi became more accepted in the vast numbers of Sephardim than Rabbi Mordechai Eliyahu, because you go for the kulot, you go for the leniencies, and he was definitely more lenient than Mordechai Eliyahu. Okay, so we have to be careful because this many times bothers us. We see a little dust, we just go like this, brush it off. Just for that action, could be different to the level of boost of laundering. Very scary. Very scary. It's something you do almost automatically. And here it doesn't matter if it's automatic like hachana. Hachana is something totally different. That's rabbinic and it's for a certain reason that you don't do effort weekday. Here you're not doing an effort. But here, it's the cleanliness that's the problem. Cleaning away your garment.
What was the case in building the Mishkan?
In building the Mishkan? Right. The kibbutz there, good question, because we're not talking about the clothes of the Kohanim.
Exactly.
That were stained.
That's why I don't understand how doing this could be even close to a deraisa with building the Mishkan. I don't see the connection.
No, we have to find. I'll tell you what the laundering was. I'll tell you what it was. The actual wool that they took off of the sheep to create the Yeriot, I guess. Right. Yeriot Izim. Right. The Yeriot Izim also. So they used to go through, it's a whole sequence of 5 or 6 malachot. They're right to separate each one of cleaning before the oreg, before the weaving of it, the cleanliness of the wool. It's menapetz and melaben and a few others. Just to clean it away from all the schmutz and garbage that got collected in the wool, and part of it is the laundering of it in order to make it nice and beautiful for the Mishkan to be part of the roof over the Mishkan. That's the kibbutz. So you're right there.
From the unfinished homer of the wool.
Yeah.
To build either the wall or a curtain or the sakiyot that the Mishkan, when they were traveling, they kept it in these sacks, right? The covers. I'm just guessing.
No, that's not part of the building of the Mishkan, but the yiriot, the cover of the roof. Right. The roof was made of the wool of the. Well, actually, not the wool. There was a skin. Right. Hashim, or tilim, or damim, or tizim.
And then going down the cobs, taking dust like that. Yes. Same deraisa, according to Rashi.
It's a stretch, but it's a stretch. I agree. It's a stretch, but it's the fact that it's from dirty to clean. Well, you have to have exactly the same type of dirt that was on the wool that would be considered laundering. You never go exactly.
We're talking about material, like the building material. Like an already built house. Like there's no.
Yeah, but we never compare that direct. I know, but we never compare exactly to what was in the Mishkan. We take the concept, like we have 39 tolados of the 39 of Osa Malacha. That's how the Rishalmi says that Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish spent 3.5 years of their life, not only doing that, but while doing other things. For 3.5 years, they try to figure out which are the 39 tolados of each one of the 39 malachos. It's very hard because they're not talking about rabbinically forbidden things. They're talking about deraita. A tolada is something that is derived from the av. Av malacha is the main action that's not allowed. Derived from it, 39 actions that are similar enough to the av, which will be considered still deraita level of sin. It's very hard.
And there's no Rishima of that.
No, we lost
it. No
one
ever made a Rishima.
Chaval. They worked so hard and they never wrote it down for us to see what it included. So I'm saying within those 39 of melaben, of kibbutz, could also be the brushing off of dust. That's the idea, because it makes the garment clean. It makes the clothes clean. And that's the problem. That's what you're not allowed to do. When does it become rabbinically forbidden? As a gzera, you shouldn't do the deraisa. That's where you have to draw the line.
That's Rashi Tosfot, right?
Right.
Dry wet.
Tosfos say that it's wet, exactly. Tosfos say that it's about tal, not avak, not dust. Tal, dew. You got onto your clothes and you want to brush it off. That's not allowed. That's what the Shulchan Aruch quotes in Shin Bet. Yeah. And the Ramah is the one who adds the dust as Rashi, exactly. So for Ashkenazim, it's definitely not allowed. Oh, yeah? Nice. Very good. Very good. Okay. Now you remember that. Remembering is also smart. The Shulchan Aruch says, why does it speak about talit chadasha shchora? Because you have to care about the dirt. If you don't really care and you're just brushing it off unintentionally, really, you don't care for the dirt, then it's not a deraita level. It's rabbinically forbidden, not deraita. When it's black and new, that's when you care that it has a stain on it that you want to get rid of it. Then it's deraita. But he says minatal she'aleh, from the dew that's on it. He wouldn't wear it without brushing it away. So that's the Shulchan Aruch. The Rama, Yesh Omrim, the Rama asks, Yesh Omrim, Asur Na'ir Beged, Min Ha'avak Shalav, Im Makpid Alav. Rashi. He quotes the Rashi that you're not even allowed to brush away dust that got collected on your clothes, as long as you're makpid alav, as long as you care that it shouldn't be there. And nowadays, poskim say they were all makpid. People don't like going out with dust on their clothes. It's not that, I guess in those days, back in the time, they used to not care about it so much. They lived in the fields.
Walking along dusty roads.
Oh, exactly. That's what I meant. They live in the fields or they live in the dust. Anyhow, right. When we go on Tiyulim on Shabbat, our clothes are filled with dust. We don't care too much because it's full of it. Nothing you can do really, right?
Steinberg?
Yes. 1 sec. Al is asking a question for a second. And then, yeah.
You're saying that the Av Malacha and then the next
Toladot, the offsprings. Yeah.
So is it 39 times 39?
Correct.
The
Oraita prohibition.
That's like over 1,500.
Oh, yeah, do the math. I don't know.
1,521.
Okay. Because it's 6.
40 times
40 times 46. Right. That's right. 16,000. That's the Oraita level prohibitions. Yes. People aren't aware of this. The problem is, as David said before, we don't know what they are really. So it doesn't help us to know that there is such a number if we don't know what it includes. But the poskim know to tell us when it's the right or when it's the rabbanon. Like take electricity, that's the best example. Electricity is not one of the lamatet avos malach because it wasn't available in those days. Nobody's existence. What does it become now? Is it the right or the rabbanon? So that's an argument. Chazon Ish says the right. Why? Toladav boneh. Rav Asher why says the right. Why? Toladav makir patish. It's one of those. As if 39 under one of the categories. So it's the right, even though it's not one of the 39 categories. It never says don't turn on electricity on Shabbat. Whereas if Shlomo Zalman said it's rabbinic, so he says, no, it's not one of the 39.
How did the concept develop that? I mean, the 39 malachas already is sort of an interpretation of, okay, there's these 39 actions of the Mishkan, so
right.
These are 39 things that are going to be prohibited on Shabbat. How did they decide that each of those have to have 39 more?
How did they know they have to have 39 more? I don't know it's a good question. I don't know what their source was to figure out what were those 39. I don't know where they came up with this number and figure that it has to be the 39. Each and every one of them has 39 offsprings and in the same category. Right. I don't know. It must be a hint in the Torah, like a smachter, something in the Torah that hints to the fact that there are 39 of each one of them, they're right level. Yeah, it's very special. The reason Rav Asher Weiss felt that electricity is under the category of makir patish is because of that Gemara in the Yerushalmi. Oh, by the way, it's only written in Yerushalmi that they had this whole research of 39 times 39 malachos. But the Yerushalmi says there that each one that they couldn't figure out, an action that they felt, their gut feeling was that it has to be the right because it's something very severe, but they couldn't find any one of the 39 categories to put it under. They stuck it under makir patish. That was the catch-all type, right? It's also called the default. By default, they sent it to, it's like Salam Ichzur on the computer. You sent you a trash pan, right? So that was their default, that it's makir patish, because that's something that's hard to define to begin with. Makir patish, like the ending, the finishing of something. So it's easy to throw into that all kinds of things that you're not certain which malacha it's part of. So Rav Asher Weiss says, let's act like Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish in those days, meaning if we see electricity is something so non-Shabbistic, it has to be prohibited on Shabbat. It can't be that we can turn electricity. But we don't know what to put it under because it doesn't work under any of the categories. So we'll throw it under makir patish. That's why he actually decided, that's his svara. It's very interesting that he made this assumption. that had we been in the days of Rebbe and Rish Lakish, had they had electricity, they would thrown it under Makir Pati, so we could do the same. And it's the right to left.
Rabbi. I mean, all know that.
What's that?
It's almost a hashkafic.
It's a hashkafic psak, right? Not so hashkafic between Haredi and Tilumi.
No.
It's not that type, right?
What we know, what we call Shabbos.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Right. The atmosphere, the spirit of Shabbat became right, but usually we categorize that as the Rabbanan, maximum, even less than the Rabbanan. It's just the atmosphere here. He's categorizing it as the right level because it's going against so strongly.
The what could be.
Exactly. Like, look at the guys today, boys and girls who SMS on Shabbat. They say it's not a prohibition because they're not really writing and it's not talking and this and that. So they allow themselves to SMS on Shabbat. That's a slippery slope. If they would know it's Doraita, any electricity that you function and work with on Shabbat is Doraita, they may have refrained from it. But since they've heard, I guess, in their past years that electricity in general is not so prohibited if it's not lighting a fire substance like havara. It's not that type of violation. All the rest is rabbinic. So they said this is almost nothing, so we'll do it. But if they would have known that it's the right of Makir Patish, I think he's standing, Rasha Weiss is standing in the not to in the hole, not to allow the hole to broaden. What's that?
Of course, you see against good kavanah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but after all, it's not definite. It's not sure, right? Yes, David, sorry, you were going to ask something?
No, not at all, of course. I think you discussed it maybe, but now I need a reminder. The same scenario as the dust, but it's a chulent or something, which is unfortunately halacha l'maisa. It comes on your white shirt where there's definitely going to be a grease stain, but also some pieces. I forgot what could you do with those pieces or not? I don't remember. That's my question.
Yeah. Good question. Any stain that comes onto your Shabbos shirt or pants, you cannot remove the stain in any way. Not applying water, not even spit or something, whatever. No liquid whatsoever to remove the stain. You have to be stuck with it. Change your shirt or have this holy stain on you to the end of Shabbat. But that piece that fell on your shirt, that definitely can be flicked off. You can flick it off or even remove it with your hand. We have, first of all, the laundering and second of all, muktzis. So from the point of view of laundering, it's not a problem because that's on top. We said whatever it's on surface and not absorbed into the fabric, it's okay to remove. So that's okay to remove the piece that fell on your shirt. From the point of view of muktzeh, because most people wouldn't eat that piece that fell on their shirt, although not necessarily didn't get dirty. If your shirt is clean, then you could eat it. But most people wouldn't care for it anymore. So it could have been muktzeh. It should have been muktzeh now because any inedible food or something that's not usable anymore, that's to go to the garbage, is muktzeh. So how can we remove it with our hand? We should maybe take it with a spoon or a fork away and dump it in the garbage. But the answer says the Chazon Ish. He comes up with this answer. Because of the feather, actually, it actually has to do with our siman. Yeah, right after what I read before from the Ramah, that you mustn't remove avak, dust, from your clothes. Right after that, it says, aval mutar la'asir hanotzot min habeged b'Shabbat. You're allowed to remove a feather from your clothes on Shabbat. He says it aval, to differentiate from dust, because that's on surface, on top, and not absorbed in. But the Chazon Ish asks a very good question. Okay, I understand why it's in Shin Bet, meaning the siman of laundering, why it's allowed. From the point of view of laundering, I understand, but why is it in Muktzeh? A feather that fell from the sky straight onto your jacket on Shabbat, nothing to do with that feather. You have nothing to do with it. It's totally Muktzeh. Muktzeh matz gufo. You're not allowed to even move it for its own gufo mekomo. So how can you remove it from your garment? And it doesn't say in the Ramah, mutar la'asir hanotzot min habeged b'Shabbat al yedei sakin or mazleg. It doesn't say take a permissible object to throw it off your clothes. It says the Chazon Ish something very interesting. Tiltul muktzeh, it's a big leniency. It's very rare that the Chazon Ish comes up with this big leniency, and he's used a lot in halacha. He says, Tiltul Muktzah means, let's say you have something that's on the table, you want to move it away, and it's a Muktzah object, so you pick it up and put it somewhere else. That's Tiltul Muktzah. You're moving it from place to place. Here, says the Chazon Ish, your intent is not to move it from place to place, it's to get rid of it where it's now. You throw it off to the floor. What?
Similar to Hachana, it sounds like. Has to be the Shema.
Ah, interesting. Wow, never thought of that connection. Like Hachana. Right, it's just, I don't want it here. It's not I want it there, I don't want it here. And it's not even to get it to somewhere else necessarily. It's to get it off, just to fall off. Right. So that's not tiltul. You're not moving it, you're dismissing it, sort of. Getting rid of it. He says it's like batel. It's not an object of its own. It's batel to the beged. It's like nullified. It's nothing. Muktzah has to be something. Here it's nothing. You don't care for it at all. It's on the garment. The clothes is what you need, and the rest of it is nothing. It's nullified.
You flick it away without any consideration.
Right, that's allowed. Exactly. You can even pick it up and drop it, or
wherever you drop it.
To take it to the garbage, if you're allowed to take it to the garbage pail and put it into the garbage pail, even that may be, because the intent is not for it to be there. The intent is not to be here. Even if you take it and move it to the garbage, it's still okay according to the Chazon Ish. Let's see if they have him in here in the Dirshu, see the exact language, if they quote the Chazon Ish in the Dirshu. 1 second.
Rabbi, is there any halakha solution? If you have dust on your jacket, you're saying it's, you give up, you wave the white flag, there's no halakha solutions?
Yes, not that I know of.
All the surface stuff will go in anything in the fabric.
If you just blow on it, we have to be very careful, because if you blow strong, then you can get the...
Better not to touch.
Right, better not to touch. I would say because of the Ramah quoting Rashi and says, V'tov lachush idvarav, it says, be careful.
A Rav that his jacket would fall and it's totally dusty.
Yeah.
How about a Brio situation? When you have Tosfot to rely upon because it's not wet, you look like you know what you look like.
Yeah.
On
the other hand, it's a Shabbos stain. You're showing the congregation. You see people. This is how you're supposed to walk around on Shabbat if you have no choice.
I gotta be when the masses see a Rav dressed like that, they don't think of how beautiful this man keeps Shabbos. That's not the first Rav that comes into their mind.
I get it.
That's a Rebbe.
I get your point. But Kvod Brios can only allow the Rabbanans, doesn't allow the Raisas. And according to Rashi, this is the Raisa. I understand this also is to rely on, but Ramah tells you, no, be careful, be aware of this Rashi.
For Sephardi rabbi, you would have a problem.
Yeah, no problem. Sephardi rabbi, no problem. Right. Even though we said that the Ben Ish Chai and the other Sephardi poskim say to be machmir, but that's definitely just a stringency by the Sephardim and not me'ikar like the Ashkenazim. It's a difference whether to be just more careful or to not to be allowed to be afraid.
So the week after, when the grease stain from the chillums on my shirt, it wasn't my Shabbos shirt, and I want to wear it again, so it's not appropriate for Shabbos. It's like kind of schmutzy. Like, am I allowed to wear that shirt? You know what I mean? If the laundry didn't really get everything out, I could end up with a spotted shirt because my Shabbos shirt because I eat like a sloth, you know.
Yeah, I mean, before Shabbat or during?
No, but now I take my shirt out and I put on that shirt. It's not the nicest shirt I have, but it's my designated Shabbat shirt because I already got it dirty. I shouldn't be thinking like that.
I don't follow. I'm not following.
You get grease on the shirt. It doesn't always come out. You spill grape juice. You make Kiddush. You get
it's a stain that remains even after laundering?
Right, yeah. That's what he's saying. But it's a Shabbos shirt.
So get a new Shabbos shirt.
It becomes a full shirt.
No, I wouldn't use it if it's dirty before Shabbat already. Yeah, that's not a problem. I'm saying the Mishnah Berurah just for David's question here. The Mishnah Berurah says, first of all, he says not only tov lachush idvarav. It says for the Ramah that it's nice to follow Rashi's opinion. You're good if you follow Rashi's opinion. The Mishnah Berurah says, "Anybody know Rabbi shekatav de midina yesh isur bazeh." The Rabbi says it's more than tov lachush idvarav. It's really it's something you have to be totally refrained from. It's not allowed to clean your garment from dust. But then he says, this is a solution in the case where it happens to a person. As David said, even for Ashkenazim, you can rely on the first opinion, which was the one of Tosfos, that only if it's wet, you're not allowed to remove it. You can ask a goy to brush it off. That, yes. Even though Amir Lakum is also rabbinically forbidden. But firstly, then you can use what you said, Kvora Brios here. The moment it's only rabbinical, the transgression. So you could do for Kvora Brios, you're allowed to be transgress the rabbinic prohibition. When it's embarrassing in front of people, you could do a rabbinic prohibition. You can transgress the rabbinic prohibition in order not to be ashamed and embarrassed in public.
So you have a housekeeper. I never really understood that. So you have a housekeper. You walk up to her, you hold out your arm, and she knows if it's like she'll take a brush and clean it.
No, in this case, you can say to her. In this case, you can say to her, "Please clean brush off my jacket," because they're talking about a rabbinic prohibition because it's by a goy. Yeah. Anything done by a goy is rabbinic, and kvod brios, that it's embarrassing to go out this way. So that's allowing you to do it intentionally, directly. Correct.
Right. Water's already dry.
No. You can, because when she puts the water, she's doing the right, quote unquote, but she's a goy. So for you, even applying water by her, applying water is only rabbinically forbidden for you to tell her to apply water, because that's the same as in Rashi, the case of the dust. It's doraita to remove the dust, and yet he's allowing it to be done by a goy, because anything a goy does is rabbinic.
Why not he allowing it to be done by a good goy? Because we can rely upon Tosfot. That's why. That's why. Maybe you're being more make law. I'm not going to argue with you. But
I'll tell you why. So I'll tell you why he's saying that. You're right. But I read the next line already without reading it out loud. He says like this. So firstly, he's relying He's relying on the first opinion that says only if it's water, then it's a problem, and therefore dust, it's dry. You can rely on the first opinion that says that it's not even laundering to begin with, but do it by a non-Jew in order to refrain from the second opinion that doesn't allow it by a Jew. Okay, but then he adds, uvifrat, especially so, the ika lifamim, because sometimes there is an issue of mishum kvod habriot bazeh. So the first line, he wasn't talking about a case where you're embarrassed or it can be embarrassing to you in public. That wasn't the case. It was in your house. You're all alone in the house. You probably suddenly see some dust. You have the housekeeper. Then it's not kvod habrios. So then we need to rely on the first opinion that says that it's not even a problem, it's not even an issue to clean off dry substance from your garment. And by doing it with a non-Jew, with a goy, that makes it totally permissible. Uvifrat, especially if there's kvod habrios. I would say that then he means to say, if it's kvod habrios, then you can do anything by a non-Jew, even apply water. That's already a second kula there. He doesn't say it explicitly, but I think that's what he means. Bifrat, that becomes very more lenient.
That logic should say, sir, why don't you take it off? I'll throw it in the washing machine. 20 minutes. I'm saying with that.
True, but that's a different issue of avshamilta. The washing machine makes noise, and people would think that you turn down the washing machine on Shabbat. That's why we don't set a washing machine even by a Shabbos clock, even by a timer on Shabbat to work for us, because it makes noise, and that's avshamilta. It doesn't matter who throws it in and who makes it work. Even if it's a Shabbos clock, it's on a Shabbos mode, it works on its own. At 10 in the morning, it's going to start working. Get all your laundry in before 10, working on its own. You didn't do any malacha. It's even better than a goy. Not even rabbinically forbidden from the point of view of activating it. But it is forbidden from the point of view of ziluta the shabta, of shamilta. The sound of it isn't Shabbos. And it's something that's prohibited by Shulchan Aruch, not just we think it's not Shabbistic that we refrain from it. Because it makes noise. So that's
the
how
noise that it makes now is so you hardly hear it.
And nowadays,
your next neighbor can't hear it.
Because like my mazgan,
if your window is open,
like the mazgan can go off and on, but that's not a noise that's
good question. That makes much more noise than mazgan.
Right.
So Moshe Feinstein, famous Jew, Moshe Feinstein said we shouldn't have been using any timers at all, not for lights, not for ACs, nothing. Because of this issue, exactly. People may think This guy turned on his light. How did it suddenly come on?
No one listens
Oh,
to
no one.
that shuvah.
Right. He himself was aware of it, and he writes in his tshuva that the public, the masses, overdid his. Right.
Yeah. I think he wrote a second one, didn't he? Maybe.
Yeah. He wrote that he's allowing it.
And then he wrote later one in the 80s, maybe.
Right, because he realized that people weren't listening.
Yeah.
So he said, okay, so it's allowed only for those specific electrical appliances that we know for sure that everyone commonly uses the Shabbos clock for. But don't add all kinds of other things. Right. That's why I said the washing machine, it's something that people don't normally use a timer for in Shabbat. So we still have to be stringent and not use it.
Someone's so quiet now, with the door closed, you can never even hear it. But now, you can't, in your own house, you can't hear it. Your next door.
Doors.
Our laundry room is outside of the house, you wouldn't hear for sure, but I understand.
Yeah. Right. So the idea is not to function like a regular normal weekday. That's the problem, right? Don't have our house. That's going to be very difficult soon, very challenging when we start having Bait Chacham. They're going to start having these homes that everything is automatic. Everything's automatic. You just walk in and it does everything for you. It prepares you the cup of coffee already in the kitchen. Yeah, I've heard they're getting to that point where it knows that when you come home, you always like having a cup of coffee. It knows the time when you like the cup of coffee, it starts preparing it for you. So to run such a home on Shabbat would be impossible. Yeah, right. The Shabbos home mode, Shabbos mode on the whole house. Yeah. Right. Okay, so, okay, very welcome. So I'm saying I think that it would be okay by a non-Jew if you're embarrassed to go in public, even by applying water, because it's, after all, rabbinic. It doesn't matter that the action is d'oraita for a Jew, but after all, when you asking a non-Jew to do so, it's rabbinically forbidden. So the first line of the Mishnah Berurah, basing it on the first opinion that only if it's dry, that's when it's not kvod abrios. Then you would need dry plus goy. But when it's covered abrios, you can have wet plus goy. Even apply water, that's what I would think.
But if your head is hefset moment, I don't want to ruin his clothing. Is that okay? Or it has to be kvod abrios or dry?
No, it has to be kvod abrios to dry. Not to ruin the clothing isn't good enough reason for Shabbat, to violate Shabbat, even rabbinically. Gets ruined. That maybe on Chol HaMoed we allow that. Chol HaMoed, we're not supposed to do any laundry on Chol HaMoed either, but for not ruining the bag of the clothes, it's not that stringent as Shabbat, so you're allowed to do it for Chol HaMoed that way. Okay, it's 10:32. Okay, so I guess we'll stop at this. A little bit more to do on this chapter of laundry. Maybe next week we should finish it. Next week will be our last class. We go off for Ben Azmanim because it's the week after is Tisha B'Av. The day of Sunday is Tisha B'Av. And after that, we go for 3 weeks vacation. So the next week will be our last lesson for this year. Bezat Hashem Elul will begin again. I'm not sure if Aleph Elul because this year it turns out mid-August. Mamash mid-August, I think people were still vacationing. So we have to start mid-Elul. Have a longer vacation because of the secular calendar this year. Okay, we'll speak about it next week.
Yasher Koyach.
Shavua Tov to everyone. Call too. You're welcome. Call too.